I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. I'm always excited to sit down and talk with two of my best friends in the media space and two established veterans who are damn good at their jobs. So let's go ahead and introduce the first one, who is in the middle of the panel right here. You know him as the jack of all trades, who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, and my man, Ben Duffy. What's up, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing all right, man. Got some big news outside of the world of combat sports today. It looks like the women and strip clubs of Houston will be much, much safer now that Deshaun Watson has been traded to Cleveland. That's good luck with that. God bless you, Cleveland. Good luck.
All Fun right. Times in Cleveland again. It's Cleveland. Come on, you know that song, that YouTube. Anyway, carry on.
All right, and of course, the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com. Also, my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. What's up, Jay?
I am just grinding here. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm burning out a little bit because the week in, week out of fight cards. So I am very relieved that next week is our last in this stretch of like 8 UFC cards in a row. So in light of that, 9 is our stat of the week because at least last week's card was awesome. The UFC London card was, by all regards, spectacular. How spectacular? 9 spectacular. There were 9 individual post-fight bonuses given out. That is a record. There have been 8 multiple times in the past. Maybe a fight of the night was issued or multiple fight of the nights, and it was all divvied up that way. It was like the Tough 9 finale and a recent UFC card. 9, every finish on the card got 50 Gs. That's how it should be. And that's my stat of the week.
Beautiful stat of the week. And hopefully this is a pattern that we see going. I mean, we've been on this show a million times talking about fighter pay being too low, our dislike of the show win system. If you want to get some quick PR points that isn't going to hurt the deep pockets of Endeavor a whole lot, man, just that 50 grand bonus to every finisher on the card is a great way to go. So hopefully this keeps up. As long as fighters get more money in their pockets, we have very little to complain about. And also that stat with all the finishes on the card brings up an interesting question that you threw on the outline here, Jay. UFC London is not the first UFC London, of course. There have been like 12 or 13 other times that the UFC has been in London.
Yep.
Was this the best show that they put on in that city?
I'm gonna fall a little bit to recency bias here and say that maybe it was. It felt like a capital M moment. It's always been a incredibly live crowd in the UK. It's always felt a little bit like a soccer match as well as a night of fights. But the moments that Molly McCann and Paddy Pimblett had, just how unhinged the audience was the whole time, in a good way. Not like a Glory Kickboxing unhinged audience way, but like, just unhinged but in their seats, or at least in their seating area, and not breaking shit. I think a lot of it will, well, no, not a lot of it. A little bit of it will depend on what happens with Pimblett. Will we look back on this 2 or 3 years from now as the beginning of his true star turn in the UFC, or will it be a flash in the pan of a guy that, went 3 and 4 in the UFC and kind of puttered out? So historical context will say a little bit about this in the future, but in the moment, this felt like something truly special.
What about you, Jay? Is this the best UFC London card we've had?
I'm falling to recency bias, not just because the excitement and the writing about this fight card, and the fact that, oh yeah, it's 7 p.m. Eastern time and I'm done. That really set me up for bonus points. Like Ben and Keith Schillen have a recap show, and that's that kind of thing. And that one of the things I talk about is to grade the card at the end of it. And one of my own personal bonus points is this fight done? Oh my god, it's 1:30 a.m. Oh my god, I'm so fried. No, this is an early day. This is I can follow the card. I can write the stat piece. I can watch the entirety of KSW, which was actually pretty darn fun too. Write the stat piece and be done on Saturday for that section. That is a big plus for me. But pushing past the whole me thing, because it's not about me. This event was huge for the locals. Like the top, there were basically everybody they wanted to win took home the win, especially for the locals. Like you have to go down to like Corey McKenna, who was a Team Alpha male fighter from Wales, and you go, well, that's not really that big of a thing. I mean, everybody. Mokayev won on the card opener. Paul Craig did Paul Craig things. Mike Grundy was probably the holdout, but that was wild too. Molly McCann and Gunnar Nelson and his SBG Ireland connections, Paddy, Arnold Allen, and Tom Aspinall. Like all the stars aligned for what the UFC had hoped for when they made these matchups. Now, I will say, and I said this last week, the UFC matchmakers knew what they were doing when they set this card up. The biggest question mark I had was I thought Alexander Volkov was going to ruin the night, because he's the kind of guy that, yeah, it took a Derek Lewis 11-second last minute Hail Mary knockout, or a Cyril Gane being spectacular, or, that kind of performance to beat him. And Tom Aspinall shined, his star shined. Arnold Allen emerged as a contender. Paddy Pimblett is doing what he does. Molly McCann did that ridiculous thing she did. So for it all to come together for the local fans and Dana to say, we're coming back, I don't care what's happening, this had to be the quintessential London card. Like I can't think like UFC 38 when it was the biggest win for the Brits was Ian Freeman when he took out Frank Mir, or you go to like UFC 75 and you go, okay, Bisping beat Matt Hamill, but it didn't really feel like this. This had that, just that everything they had wanted to put a card on, and that was a big deal, I think. So yeah, this is the King London card.
You know what? I'm gonna fall victim to recency bias as well, and I like the approach that you two have had, and I'll take a slightly different angle. This is the only card I can think top to bottom where it was providing you moments and was providing you with excitement. Also, this was the return of the UFC on its typical road show post COVID. So you're talking about a fan base that literally was robbed of their sort of annual big card as the pandemic began, which was originally supposed to be Woodley versus Edward. They're robbed of that, and this drought of the UFC's traveling, and now the UFC returns to London with all these English fighters that have great results. But then I think about the other fights. The thing is, there's so many fights that O2 Arena or London in general has held that have had more importance from a ranking standpoint. We had probably the most significant fight that ever took place there was with Dan Henderson and Quentin Rampage Jackson for like the Pride and UFC unification bout. Pretty boring fight. You can think of a big moment like which has historical context in, once Masvidal's career played out more, but him knocking out Darren Till in the main event. But the rest of the card wasn't really all that. Like there are so many other cherry pick moments where if you took a moment from every other card in London and pieced it together to form one event, you've probably got something bigger than what happened on Saturday there.
If you make UFC Voltron out of all the other like London cards they've had.
and I just got finished watching the Rick and Morty episode where they're making fun of Voltron. So that's especially beautiful, Ben. Love the reference there. So yeah, this is probably the best one. And forgive me for not watching every single UFC London card in anticipation of doing this show, to say for sure, but yeah, I'm gonna say this is the best overall card that we've had in London.
It was just so memorable. It was the kind of thing that you'll remember. Mokayev getting the whole Mokayev exchange with Cody Durden, and because Cody Durden in his post-fight interview said to Uri Shilang, go back to China, and that incensed Mokaev, who then throttled this guy and says, go back to the U.S. embassy, they'll send you home. Like every one of these things, there's just that kind of thing. You think of like a past card like Silva Bisping, which was a fight night in 2016. Do you guys remember any other fights in that card? I barely do. I remember Bisping and Silva. Of course I do. But do you remember Rustam Kabalov tossing Norman Park around? No. Do you remember David Tamer booting Martin Svensson in the head? No. It didn't have that boom. But you darn sure will remember Tom Aspinall wrenching the straight arm bar. You'll remember Arnold Allen getting up there and throwing down in a way we haven't seen him do. You'll remember Molly McCann doing that little thing she did. That little thing.
Oh my goodness.
Remember.
No, that little.
I know we're going to talk about these.
Left someone slept. Yes. Well, I mean, you brought up Tom Aspinall, main event winner, with the arm bar on Alexander Volkov. Fantastic performance by Aspinall. Do you think the Tai Tuivasa call out at the end of the fight, which was masterfully done, by the way, that sounds like an exciting fight, but is that the fight that makes sense right now?
Yes. And I don't care that Cyril Gane was sitting right there and was probably expecting to get called out. I love this. One, there's two main reasons I love this. And these days it's on my mind because I write the matches to make column for Sherdog. That mantle has fallen to me. I like this because one, they're the only guys in the heavyweight top 10 on this kind of win streak. If you match up Aspinall against Gane, or you match him up, say Blaydes rips up Chris Daukaus this weekend in Columbus, you match him up against one of them, there's a chance that you get Aspinall knocked off by somebody who's already lost to Ngannou. What you do is you do match up Aspinall and Tuivasa. You get a winner that's on a 6-fight win streak, probably all finishes if we're being honest, and hasn't fought Ngannou yet. That's what you need. Like you need fresh challengers for this man, or you need someone to fight for an interim title if Dana's threat comes true, because he said that in the post-fight presser, we might do another interim belt. But yeah, you absolutely do it. And there's another reason. I think there are a certain number of people out there that think Tuivasa, like there's still a little bit of flukiness there. Yeah, he knocked out Derek Lewis, but maybe they still think of him as the guy that lost 3 straight, leading up to like late 2019. And he's still just that fun slugger, but probably not an actual contender himself. Well, if that's the case, then this is about the only time that Aspinall versus Tuivasa is going to be competitively appropriate, because you think Tuivasa is going to lose one of his next 2 fights anyway if he fights other top contenders. Like if Tuivasa fights Blaydes, are you comfortable with that? So yeah, you strike now. Make that fight.
Absolutely. I usually think of like divisions that are starved for contenders, and you don't want to have them crash into each other because then one loses. But the alternative is one gets blanked by Cyril Gane.
Yeah.
And gets thrown around by Curtis Blaydes, or Stipe's not going to take the fight. The reason I like this fight is because it's fresh, it's new, it's violent, and even the loser won't take a big hit if they lose to the other. If say Tuivasa were to fight Curtis Blaydes gets past Chris Daukaus this weekend, Tai Tuivasa will tumble down the rankings because people will be like, well, there you go. We knew it was going to happen. Whereas if Aspinall crashes into Tuivasa and they just have a rental car crash up derby, well, they're going to be 4-5, and you won't be that upset about the next fight of the losing fighter. And you can imagine an opportunity where, say, Tuivasa gets past Aspinall in this theoretical matchup. Well, then you can still have Aspinall Lewis, that kind of thing. You have the options with these fresh faces in the division, because the alternative is to make them fight guys coming off of losses. And I don't like it. I don't want to see Cyril Gane point fight a decision of either guy, and then we go, well, do we want to see Cyril Gane get wrestled by D1 and Ngannou again? No, I don't want to see that fight again. I can think of fewer fights I'd rather see rematched with Cyril Gane than that, besides, I don't know, Volkov or Rosenstrike. Oh boy, a lot of rough fights for Gane. Yeah, this is the fight to make.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you guys again, and hopefully this is not the pattern of the whole show when we're just sitting here just being
Oh,
each other's yes
boring.
men. I know, right? Well, that would really suck. But I'm with you. This is a great fight to make, and especially for those people who have their doubts about Tai Tuivasa. I'm one of them. I went on here and said, hey, this probably is that moment that which why am I blanking on his name that beat Yoel Romero to get and got styled on by Adesanya.
Paulo Costa.
Yes, Paulo Costa. So Paulo is like a Paulo Costa moment. Is he going to get past this one perfectly matched up opponent to then ascend to a level that he's clearly not ready for from a skill perspective, which I think Tai Tuivasa is. If you put him up against a Stipe or you put him up against Gon or Ngannou, but a test against someone like Tom Aspinall makes a lot of sense. This is a guy who skill wise clearly is one of the elites in the division, and it gives Tuivasa a chance to face one of them, and we'll see what happens. And if he gets past that, then this guy is for sure a contender for the title. And if Aspinall gets past someone who's just on a visceral level, just dangerous like Tai Tuivasa, in a role that otherwise probably would have been occupied by a Derek Lewis, I say Aspinall is there. So you're playing with house money, and then as you said, Jay, the alternatives are matching them up with people who have already kind of been chewed up and spat out by the current champion, Francis Ngannou, or retreads of matches that we don't want to see. And this just seems to be the perfect time when both gentlemen are ready to sign that contract and get in the octagon. Let's make it happen. Aspinall versus Tuivasa sounds like a fantastic evening of face punching to me.
Like, I love Curtis Blaydes, but you have to keep him as far away from a title shot as possible because you can't sell it. You can't even make it as long as Ngannou's the champion. You make Blaydes fight John Jones or somebody that's also kind of away from the title picture. You don't make him, the spoiler, because then you're going to have the Joe Benavidez knocking off contenders. You're going to have the Caitlin Chukagian situation, which, by the way, you're going to have the Holly Holm.
Goaltending two divisions is the worst.
Exactamundo. Yeah, you're going to have that. And the UFC seems to be tired of that, although they did re-sign Caitlin Chukagian. So we thought they were going to cut bait and run, but they decided to match her up against, was it Vivi Arusho? Is it, no, it's a hot prospect that I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but it's a tough matchup for that fighter.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
Tough matchup for the air in the octagon.
All right. Well, let's give a little love to the co-main event here. Arnold Allen gets a spectacular win over Dan Hooker in his return to the featherweight division. So Arnold Allen knocked back former standout featherweight who turned standout lightweight, turned back to featherweight. Is he now finally top 5 at 145 in your opinion?
He is certainly worthy of fighting for it. I understand why people have kind of faded him for a while, because that was his first finish since like 2018. People who just kind of win. I mean, look no further than Leon Edwards, who was in, the front row. Well, probably not the front row. Like, Dana really hates him. He's probably like in the third row, but he was there. Where people will denigrate your accomplishments if there's not much for the sizzle reel. And that's been Allen. He's now won 9 in a row. That's best in the division over Alex Volkanovski. And he got a savage finish. Like, you can argue that he leveled up as much as anybody on the card, including Aspinall, and maybe closer to a title shot than anybody on the card, including Aspinall. I think he should be considered a top 5 featherweight. Absolutely. He's won 9 in a row, and the progression has been there. He's now to the point where he's beating top 10 quality guys. And you can argue, okay, a lot of people criticized Hooker's decision to move back down to 145. He looked like jerky on the scale. But, I mean, Allen's beating the people they put in front of him, and finish or no, he's tending to make it look pretty easy. Top 5 guy, in my opinion.
Amanda Ribas is who Caitlin Chukagian's fighting. So that's weird. Man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know.
I like it when Amanda Hebus is really happy after she wins.
She's moving up to 125 again, and she's fighting Kuchikagi, so good luck. I'm not ready to call Arnold Allen a top 5 guy yet. And I say that knowing what he just did to the number 8 lightweight, Dan Hooker, who moved down, did the whole Conor McGregor, I'm going to look like death in the scale and still be okay kind of thing. And, he looked great. Like that, I can't take away from his performance, and don't make it sound like I'm going to. But it's the Gregor Gillespie situation, where you're going to string together an excellent win streak over, and I can't disrespect some of the guys that he's beaten, but like Dan Hooker is far and away the toughest test he'd beaten, which before them was Sadiq Youssef, which is a guy who is not able to break into. Oh no, he's in the top 15, I think now. So actually, that might be a bigger win for him than Hooker. This is unfair of me, and this is unfair of us. This is unfair of us as a community, because we will have guys that will be 3-2 or 2-3 in their last 5. And they'll be in the top 5 because they're going against, Max Holloway had lost several fights in a row and was still the number 1 contender. Brian Ortega lost to Max, and you can see the guys, Chan Sung Jung, Rodriguez, they'll lose multiple fights. Calvin Kattar,
Frankie Edgar.
Perfect example of fighters that will be up in the top echelon of the division and will block other fighters that are on arguably more impressive streaks. Welterweight is the greatest culprit of them all, because you look at the guys who are up in the top of the division and, Stephen Thompson, does he deserve to be there? Well, yes and no. Does Jorge Masvidal deserve to be there? Well, yes and no. Neil Magny, we're still, he's still a top 10 guy. Is he? Well, maybe. I mean, he's fighting Max Griffin, who's like 3-6 in the UFC, so who knows? So these fighters that have been around there seem to have the longevity of being ranked, kind of like we always talk about, like former champions will always have an easier shot at the next title shot. It's kind of like that for once you get in the top 5, you're probably going to stay there a while. Like Robbie Lawler was in the top 5 after many losses. And we can think of the Dos Anjos had a really rough streak, and he's still, he's won 2 in a row now, both by really, by really close split decision. And he's number 6 in his division. So based on the inherent bias we have built in the system, Arnold Allen is not a top 5 guy. But on talent, I would love to see him fight a Brian Ortega type. I would like that very much. He
called for Calvin Kattar. Do you like that?
I'm always down for a Calvin Kattar fight. Like that's, and this is it's a style that plays favorably to what Arnold Allen brings to the table. So I think both of them would probably be very intrigued by that matchup. I'm okay with it. I just think if we're really trying to evaluate Allen's potential as someone who's going to threaten for the title, probably have to pick a different stylistic matchup.
That's why I said
like a Josh Emmett or something like that. Maybe.
I'm okay with it. They're both on good streaks. I think Josh Emmett's currently ranked above him.
Yeah. I mean, Allen's in kind of a weird place because of the name. So when we get, let me pull this up, make sure I'm not misspeaking at all here. So previous to Hooker and Youssef, Nick Lentz and Gilbert Melendez, 2 guys who on their way out of the door for his wins. And
Melendez had lost like 4 in a row into that fight. So
that was his last fight too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah, and Nick Lentz retired shortly after his loss. I think he might have had one more fight, and he called it quits.
I think you're right. One more after Allen.
And Dan Hooker, quite honestly, looked pretty bad coming in there. Like
lost 3 of his last 4.
And just that weight cut, I think, just trashed him more than he realized it would. Did he look particularly slow to you on Saturday?
Well, I say that he lost 3 of his last 4. I know watchers are screaming, saying he lost to Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, and Islam Makhachev. It's not like he's losing to the other guys in the world. He looked, aside from that one counter, you remember the counter, the one that he got in on Allen.
Where Allen slipped at the same time as the punch landed. Yeah,
he looked a step behind. He looked tired, like maybe from the weight cut. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Duffy, am I crazy? Did he look a step behind?
He was never a blindingly fast guy at 145, even during his heyday a couple of years ago. He got by on toughness, which that's going to run out at a certain point. Good use of his reach and solid technique. I mean, he was, he was usually not the faster guy at 145 anyway. Obviously, he got lamped by Chandler, and the chin that allowed that, certainly wasn't going to benefit from shedding another 10 pounds. I mean, I'm not a doctor either, but he looked unconscious at the end of that fight. I'm comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
I think if I can step on your toes, and to say, I think the most noticeable thing wasn't his speed, and maybe you can dispute this, was the fact that every time Allen landed cleanly, you could tell it would. And this is an Arnold Allen who I don't know for his power. Like, I don't think he has gotten a legitimate strike stoppage in like 5 or 6 or 7 years, and it wasn't against the top flight guys in the division. Every time he really landed on Hooker, he stung him. And I think that I don't attribute that to Allen developing his power at 28, even though maybe I should. I attribute that to Hooker's weight cut, depleted, just a little bit more oomph on the shots. And maybe are you with me?
I'm not mad at that at all. Like, my thoughts too, if it wasn't, as Ben did point out, like, he wasn't necessarily the fastest person at 145 in his original stint in that division, but the other alternative to that, to him being slow, is him hesitating to pull the trigger, because that right hand it seemed like he just couldn't fire it off when he needed to, for the most part. If that's the case, if it's not a speed thing and a hesitation to pull the trigger, then we've got a big problem. We've got a huge problem. And that is typically the beginning of the end of a fighter's career. And you think about the beatings that Hooker has taken over his career, this one included. I mean, this was a lot of damage in a very short span of time. You think about the Edson Barboza fight, you think about the Chandler fight, like, that he has gotten beaten down very severely. The track runs out at some point, and if he was hesitating to pull the trigger, the track is probably run out for Dan Hooker, which then unfairly, if you want to say that, kind of calls into question the quality of Allen's win. Of course, he's beating the guy who's been put in front of him, but if we're talking about top 5 in one of the most competitive and stacked divisions in the UFC, may not be enough for me. But he has certainly earned his opportunity to fight his way into the top 5. So
how? No, please, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was thinking of something to say to wrap it up. So go ahead, Ben.
How would we be talking about Hooker if he had knocked out Allen in the first round? He's a top 5 guy. He's ready for one more fight and probably a title shot. Yeah. It's unfair not to do the other.
I agree.
Yeah, you're right.
I agree by the structure of our own, because again, he was number 8 in lightweight coming down to featherweight. He had lamped him, and lamped a guy in a long win streak. That would have absolutely been a sort of a double standard. But we'd have that. We have one guy gets a title shot, but if Volkov had won, we wouldn't be talking about, okay, maybe he can fight, I don't know, Rosenstrike. Did he fight Rosenstrike? No, they haven't ever fought. It's just you got to shrug your shoulders. And look at that. But what's something interesting about featherweight? This is a division ruled by strikers. It's not a grapple heavy. It's not like welterweight where you got to go, oh my God, you have to deal with the wrestling of blank and blank and blank and blank and blank. This is, who's the best, arguably the best straight wrestler in the division, in the top 10? Well, Josh Emmett probably, right? Yeah. I wouldn't say Volkanovski would be the guy. And, everybody else at striker, Volkanovski, Max, obviously. Ortega's not a grappler. He's a submission threat. Yair, Chen Sung Jung, Cater, every single one of us this is a strikers delight division. The other than that, maybe Bryce Mitchell as your other top grappling threat.
It's the new blood. It's like the Movsar Evloyevs and Ilia Topuria coming up that are going to be your better wrestlers.
Yeah.
So it'll be a different look in another year or two, but right now you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, the best wrestler at featherweight is knocking people out in BKFC right now. at like 160 pounds
Whew.
because
Wow.
Chad Mendez, we barely knew you.
Oh, Fames, we didn't know you at all.
Fame's album probably sucks too.
Oh, there's no way it doesn't suck. Like it's terrible. You know it's terrible.
I'm sure it's horrible. Oh man. All right. So speaking of all the knockouts, Molly McCann had a surefire entry for knockout of the year on Saturday night. I mean, just absolutely beautiful work there. If it does win knockout of the year, first of all, I can't really think of what would beat that right now. I don't know. It could be recency bias that's just blocking the rest of my memory. What are other candidates for knockout of the year, or would contend with this? I should say.
You know how when a superlative comes out and we go, wow, that's it. That's the one. Like, I don't care about the rest of Gaethje Chandler. I don't care about the rest of the fights that happened this year. They could have been phenomenal. They could have been for higher stakes. It could have been title fights. Don't care. It's the one. And you forget about the rest. When Luana Carolina went down all the way out and her arms are going plop, it knocked all of the past knockouts, the good knockouts. Like, this is a kind of knockout like Ilia Topuria's one hitter, the right behind the ear, left of the body, right over top, the absolute face planting of Jai Herbert would have been a possible knockout of the year contender because of the way it landed. And then I saw the Molly McCann knockout. I want to throw that one in the outside garbage. Like, seriously, it's just a shocking thing. And what is so shocking, maybe is the numbers that are shocking to me. You know how many women have landed spinning shot knockouts in the OC? Molly McCann's the first.
She would also be the first woman to win Sherdog's Knockout of the Year award.
That is right.
And of all the women in the entire UFC, who is the one that you would pick to do that? Would it be the woman who hasn't knocked anybody out in the UFC?
Yeah. Like you would think Nunes or Shevchenko or Cyborg winning knockout of the year.
Rose Namajunas has had a couple that looked like they could have come close, like head kicking Wei Li Zhang. You know,
Holly's knockout of Ronda was the number 2 one year that it happened.
But, and you think like Holly had that question mark KO over Bethe Correia. You know, you think of some moments like that, but
Molly McCann.
And
as soon as she hit it, because I'm with Jay. As soon as she hit it, I don't care that it's the middle of March. I don't care that there had been a knockout of the year contender like 20 minutes before. My mind immediately went away from, is this knockout of the year? And it was kind of like when Masvidal kneed Askren. I was like, Is that the best flying knee I've ever seen in this sport?
Mm-hmm.
Because that seriously might be just the cleanest spinning elbow knockout I've ever seen, like in high level mixed martial arts. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. So let's to give it a little context here. I'll just name some past knockout of the year winners. So Sergio Pettis, Joaquin Buckley, and this is in descending order. Sergio Pettis, Joaquin Buckley, Jorge Masvidal, Yair Rodriguez, Edson Barboza, MVP, Conor McGregor, Dong Young Kim, Chris Weidman, Edson Barboza, again, Lyoto Machida, Robbie Lawler, Fedor, Rashad Evans, Crow Cop, James Irvin, and Crow Cop again. Out of those names, the most surprising Dong Young Kim.
It's the one. And you know why?
Isn't the one that sounds like a knockout artist to me?
He's nicknamed Stun Gun. So he had, that the knockout stunning power to his credit. And you know what he also hit on John Hathaway was a spinning back elbow.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, if you aren't historically the guy to or the lady to knock someone out, just throw a spinning elbow. Does the trick every time, apparently.
60% of the time?
It works all the time. Yeah, man. Because every other person that I named there, just about, you have your Barbozas and Rodriguez's and, Masvidal's, people who are known for crisp striking.
Exactly. Where you look at the list and go, yeah, I could, like, if you hadn't seen any of the performances but knew who the fighters were,
Yeah.
which that's weird. You go, yeah, I can see MVP doing something like that. Oh yeah, Connor probably
would win that, of course. And you think even like Rashad Evans, who you know, at that stage wasn't really known as a knockout artist. Like I think it was the fight before that he knocked out Sean Salmon before he knocked out Chuck Liddell. So so it was like, okay, it was trending upward. So you realize, oh, this guy can finish you.
Machida kicking Randy in the face. You'd seen his other,
and Machida had kicked plenty of people in the face, and we'd seen what he was capable of doing. Yeah, man. So Marlon McCann certainly a stunning entry to the KO of the year conversation. And if she doesn't win it, well, we've got a good year ahead of us.
That's right.
We've got a fantastic year. All right, gentlemen. Let me go ahead and break out the clock. Now, I have been back to working out consistently, so I got to make sure the clock is on the proper setting. We're going to go ahead and do quick hits. I'm going to put 30 seconds, and I'm going to toss out some questions your way, gentlemen. Let's see here. What workout was I doing? There we go. Oh, it's the wrong workout. There it is. Are
you back on P90X again?
You know, I can't find all my P90X DVDs, so going to the gym, squats, deadlifts, heavy bag work like an old-fashioned meathead, just the way I like it. All right, buddy, let's start with you, Jay. Now, we were talking about featherweight earlier, and let's talk about one of the guys that you one of you mentioned here. Should Ilia Topuria stick around at 155, or is featherweight the place for him?
He looked awfully small in that cage there. And Jai Herbert is not I mean, he's like 6'1", but he is not a massive lightweight by the standard of big lightweights that we have in the division. You can see the hulking brutes we have there. 145 should be the place for him, but he has the power to do 155. So I would love to see him jump back and forth if we're going to get crazy here.
All right. Oh, respect for the clock, Jay. You're a changed man. I love it. I love it. All right, Ben.
I have tried to fix the error of my ways.
All right, Ben, you're up next. How do fighters keep falling victim to Paul Craig's triangles?
Paul fucking Craig. How awesome is this? Like, how can you do the equivalent of the rope-a-dope on the canvas? How is I'm going to let you punch me in the head 20 times without moving my head a path to victory in the top 10 of the modern UFC? I don't know, but really, he has poise and he has good setups and he lulls people to sleep. Literally, it's amazing.
All right, and
he went out, by the way. I'd just like to say he went out.
Mm-hmm.
He got knocked out, and he came and he got knocked back in. So
man, that was.
I do appreciate Lucas Bisacki being a little negligent there, because 100%
like
Paul Craig's eyes rolled back.
Like he was done. Like he was not conscious, and a dead man somehow landed a triangle choke. He keeps doing it, man. That is an active dead man. Oh. All right. So I guess one of you asked me a question just to keep me from sounding crazy.
Man.
Sure, I will. Ant, the UFC is discussing an interim heavyweight title. Based on the landscape now, who would get a crack at that newly created belt?
I gotta imagine Cyril Gane would be back in that discussion, because he still like had him cage side with the sunglasses. So they were ready for something. Tai Tuivasa sounds like an exciting person to put there. We want Tuivasa versus Aspinall, but if they're forcing the interim title, I don't think Aspinall is quite the guy they're going to do it for. So probably be Gane and Tuivasa. But what about Stipe? I don't know. Stipe is going to beg for that. Stipe versus Gane. Fuck it.
I don't like it. I don't like any. I want Aspinall Tuivasa for the interim belt. Stipe and Gane are coming off losses. Screw that.
Yeah, but we don't need a belt attached. We don't need an artificial belt attached to that fight. That's just going to be a good fight.
It does make that winner an official #1 contender, which is really all that belt is now.
Yeah,
it means they probably won't get bumped back by Jones. That's kind of the way I thought of it.
Yeah, I'm not even. John Jones isn't even a factor in my thought process anymore. Yeah, like I saw this on social media the other day, and I didn't even think about it this way. Like apparently, John Jones has less recent activity than the retired Daniel Cormier.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
It's like
that Cormier had fought 6 months more recent than Jones or something.
Make it make sense. Yeah, man, he's got to stop eating mashed potatoes and jump in there and start fighting people, man. I'm anxious to see this. All right, yeah. So we got one question left over, and I think that we'll just
I like what we did. Was it last week when we each
yeah,
had a shot at it? I like that. I like
yeah,
that a lot.
man. So let's go. Let's go ahead and Jay, I'm going to start with you. Where's
Okay.
my clock? Can the UFC actually push Paddy Pimblett and sell out a stadium with him on the marquee?
You could. I can't say you could make a pay-per-view, but you might be able to craft a pay-per-view. Tom Aspinall, Tuivasa for an interim heavyweight title, and then the co-main event had Darren Till versus a warm body. Have Paddy Pimblett and have Molly McCann all on the main card. Make it UFC Liverpool, the Scousers versus the world, and you could sell that. By the crowd noise, you could sell that. Do I believe in it? No. Do I think Paddy's going to get smoked? Yes, but they could sell it.
Good answer. Ben, what say you? Paddy Pimblett, is he selling out a stadium with his name on the marquee?
Not right now. If he can win through to the point where they can have him fight for a title in his hometown, probably at that point.
Oh, wow.
All I got
Super
to say
respect.
about that.
Wow, well, I mean, a lot of respect for the clock to the point where I'm going to reset it because we'll have 20
Well,
seconds of awkward silence.
I was gonna give Ben like a couple seconds for a follow-up question.
Oh, damn. Well, let me go.
UFC Liverpool? Question mark?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
those
I mean, the
Liverpool fools are
UFC,
crazy,
the
man. They'll be
UFC
there.
wants to come back to the UK this year.
Yeah.
Where are they going to go? They're going to go to the place where the two people that kind of made the event came from. You know, and all due respect to Aspinall, who's from Greater Manchester, it was McCann and Pimblett. You go there.
Yeah.
But that's not packing the stadium right now.
Yeah, right. Okay. So Ben, ask me the question so I don't sound crazy.
Okay. And can the UFC actually push Paddy Pimblett and sell out a stadium with him on the marquee?
I'm with you. Not yet. I think he has a little ways to go. I think he's got to get a couple of wins under his belt against higher quality opposition, be somewhere in the title picture, and then you can talk about this. And realistically, a stadium show is going to have to require a belt. Jay's scenario of stacking the card with a bunch of other fighters, that would work, but it won't work because of him. He could be off that card and it still would sell. But I quite frankly don't think Paddy Pimblett is going to make it that far. I think he gets slept before he gets the opportunity. Oh.
One day he'll fight a UFC fighter with a record of 500 or better.
Right.
Just not yet.
Yeah, and then he'll probably get his chin cracked that day. The man takes too much damage.
You were, by the way, Mr. Duffy, you matching him on your matches to make call against Jim Miller. Jim Miller would knock him OUT based on what he's been doing lately.
It's possible.
I would love to see that.
He has a path to victory. Don't get knocked out in the first round because that's as much gas as Jim Miller has in 2022. And then prove that you are that good on the ground against someone who can absolutely take care of himself on the ground. I thought it was a winnable fight. Like, he was very smart to ignore the Ilia Topuria call because he does not want that.
Mm-hmm.
Ilia Topuria would knock that man like all the way off the British Isles.
All right, gentlemen, it is time to move on to the best title segment in all of media history. I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the course of the past week. Jay, I'm going to start with you on this one. What's your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment?
We have a hero in our sport. And I don't mean Phoenix Jones, who later gets busted for drugs. I mean
Dark Phoenix Jones now. Yeah.
Yeah. Dark
Phoenix John Jones.
Ooh, I'm liking what we're doing here. But we have a real hero on our hands who has now successfully prevented another crime from going down and people getting hurt. In UFC welterweight now, Kevin Holland was at a sushi restaurant in Mr. Duffy's neck of the woods. I think it was like Raw Sushi, a place in Houston. And there were a gunman that came into the bar area and fired off some shots. And Kevin Holland and some friends or teammates or whomever they may be helped and subdued him. And it sounds like Holland was the one who wrapped him up with his professional MMA training. Maybe he got better fighting off trolls. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, maybe this is actually part of his grappling training and he's just doing it very unorthodox fashion. But man, nobody got hurt. and maybe the guy, but he just the gunman, but he got hurt. But Kevin Holland, it's not the first time he's done this. Remember, back in like October or November, he stopped a car thief from breaking in and taking somebody, and he held him down too. So good guy, Kevin Holland. The UFC really needs to push this guy because they're getting the whole package. It's not just Big Mouth Holland anymore, and they would behoove them to put a microphone in front of his face anytime they can.
As someone who finally saw the most recent Batman movie last week, like I was like, I saw the movie and then I saw the headline. Like I'm walking out the theater, I check my phone, I'm like, oh shit, like Kevin Holland's Batman.
I am surprised, Mr. Falcons, that we got a good guy in the sport.
And he's sparring against internet trolls. So user 04935, you saved a life. So congratulations. Ben, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Oh, well, there have been some shots fired this week over social media from an arm of the business that doesn't normally fire shots. PFL VP of Public Relations, Loren Mack, who previously occupied a similar position with One Championship up until kind of midnight or mid 2020. And before working with One Championship, got his start with the UFC. He basically just put One Championship on blast today. He said the difference between PFL and One Championship is that PFL is like actually growing a new promotion and a new audience, while One Championship is trading on a false narrative. The substance of the statement is not that shocking. I mean, all of us here have kind of talked about One Championship's shadiness and the possible kind of house of cards that they build with their patently false narratives, but was surprising to hear that from Mack, who almost certainly signed an NDA / non-disparagement agreement before leaving One Championship. I can't imagine they wouldn't have done that, considering that
the settlement.
It would be part of the settlement. Current One Championship athletes and employees have let slip a few times that they're muzzled pretty hard. I can't imagine they would let someone like Mack go to a competing promotion, because One Championship and PFL, whatever they may say publicly, they both have their sights set on being the number 2 promotion in the world. They want to supplant Bellator and be the league right under the UFC. I can't imagine that they would have let him go to a competitor and not given some sort of legal gag against saying shit like that. But he said it, so can't wait to see what breaks out next. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
What kind of PR person admits, then it's still in PR, by the way, admits that they were shoveling it the whole time they were working their job, and then says, but I'm doing this job at this company saying the same things as I said before.
Yeah, it's kind of like
credibility in the negatives here.
Like, why would we believe you now? Especially when we've seen like PFL struggling to gain its foothold in a lot of ways. So all in all, like, surprised that Loren Mack was the one to come out with this information, but not surprised by the content of it. Yeah. And not surprised that there is some level of misalignment with reality and the narrative that we're presented, whether it be from PFL or from One Championship, much more heavily from One Championship though at this point. No point in me piling on them. You guys know how I feel.
This coincides with PFL announcing its upcoming regular season, that they're going to be based out of Dallas and Atlanta this year. If it's a calculated thing to just sort of bring extra eyeballs and a little extra social search optimization to his new employer, that's an interesting scorched earth way to do it. But hey, I mean, we're talking about PFL right now, and otherwise we might not be.
And I'm wearing the PFL shirt, so that says something. But I wore One Championship shirt the other day, like just walking around the house. So yeah,
the number 2, they're number 1 in the number 2 business, guys.
All right. I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment comes courtesy of friend of the show, personal friend of ours too, Mr. Casey Leydon, the videographer over at MMA Fighting, who this weekend had a fight and won. Dominant 30-27. I think you could have definitely made a case for a 30-26 there. An impressive performance in his MMA debut. This was the culmination of his training camp with the Winter Warrior program, which I believe Rich Chow is now in charge of. Rich Chow and John Kavanaugh, I think, has something to do with it, at least in overseas. But yeah, man, I'm not surprised at all that Casey had this victory. I've probably talked about it on the show several times before, but he lives pretty close to me, good friends, and I've gone to train with him many times, and the way he beat his opponent is exactly the way he's beaten me in sparring many times, like exactly the same. Like if I didn't watch this fight, thank you to Mark Raymundi, another friend who streamed it on IG Live, because I was supposed to be there, but my son got sick, so I couldn't really leave. I'm changing diarrhea diapers all day. But I did get to see this fight thanks to him. And man, if I didn't see it, this is exactly the way I thought it would have happened, because it's happened to me. Wow, I'm telling you, Casey's top pressure is so suffocating. And I think he said on the like the build up to the fight, like he said, like his advantage was going to be a weaponized pace. That's the exact terminology he's used as he's beating me up. So like the guy has beaten me up, like taking me down, and he's just like over me, just like punching my face, and he's like, weaponized pace is like cardio's a weapon, and he's just punching me. So not surprised at all.
Is Casey 44?
Yep.
44? I thought it was like 42.
That's what Camo says, 44.
Oh, 44. Okay. Well, he's definitely older than me. So
for those of you at home,
yeah,
don't give up on your dreams. Go to the gym.
Yeah, for real.
And
it's achievable.
Yeah,
it's achievable. And that man has worked very hard to make that happen. Yeah, so I'm so happy for him, so proud of him. And we at the Walkout Network, we love you, Casey. Congratulations on a big milestone in life. So that's what's up.
And now his next fighter, Stafford Struve, who has joined the MMA media space.
Oh, I thought he was going to be in line to fight MVP next. So either way, man. Dave Feldman and Scott Coker have been blowing up his phone since. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's keep things pushing here, because despite the fact that we just sat in here and trashed them, One Championship does put together a good product. They consistently put on good fights and have good events. And this weekend is no different. In fact, this weekend feels elevated above others. They have a 20-fight mega card: MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, grappling, and even a mixed rules bout between former UFC flyweight champion Demetrius Johnson and Muay Thai standout Rod Tang. This is attached to a $40 pay-per-view here. First time that I can remember One Championship doing a pay-per-view. At least I do. They had the pay thing with Bleacher Report.
Yeah,
but it wasn't $40, and it was like subscribing to the streaming service, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah,
gentlemen, do you plan on being $40 poor by the end of the weekend?
Probably. The question really is, would I be if I didn't need to be up on what happened in order to be able to talk about it intelligently next week? And my answer to that is, I probably would have shelled out 20 for this. This is One Championship loading the card as well as it can with, I mean, it's putting forth all the names that, a casual Western fan would probably recognize. It's putting forward the kind of eye candy and just popcorn stuff like Mighty Mouse versus Rod Tang in a mixed rules fight that will bring the hardcore weirdos out. I mean, that's my main attraction. I want to see that, because Mighty Mouse is one of the best fighters on the planet, and Rod Tang is fucking awesome. I want to see it. And in either kickboxing or MMA, it wouldn't be much fun.
Yeah, I wholeheartly agree with that, man. Jay, are you? I know you guys got that nice cushy SureDog reimbursement for your pay-per-views. Is this going to be a $40 expense for you this weekend?
I don't know if I'll be able to get away with expensing this card if I'm unable to cover it in a massive statistical capacity because I'm not covering it like that. What were you saying,
Yeah,
Duffy?
I won't expense it.
Yeah, I don't know if
I'll
I'd
just
be
buy it.
able to.
I would have. Maybe that's why I got laid off.
I mean, it depends if I ramp up my coverage that day because that's on Saturday into Sunday. And I feel like I should know this as somebody in the media that will be covering that this weekend. I don't know when it starts and when it ends and how it really goes on because there are 20 fights. One championship can have a really good pace and can have a really, really drastically awful PFL pace. So I don't know. That's weird. I hope somebody in the comments can let us know, give us a link. If not, I will look probably in a half hour. So I'll beat you to the punch. They're doing everything they can. One's doing everything they can to put on a card worthy of throwing $40 at it. But this isn't a $40 card. And I say that with all love and respect to the fighters that are competing. I don't really care about Shinya Aoki versus Sexyama. It just okay. I get why people would care about it. I understand that, but to me, it is what it is. The Mighty Mouse Rod Tank fight. All I can think of is Dream, the Dream fight where Aoki fought Jinatsu, and they had that the first round kickboxing, and Shinya hung in there, and then 4 seconds into the second round, Aoki shot for a takedown and got his chin checked and knocked KO all the way out. I want the nonsense. If we're going to get a nonsense fight, I want a nonsense result, and I love Mighty Mouse and Rod Tank's the man. So I feel bad that we're going to have nonsense in that result for one of these guys, but at least it's an exhibition, so it doesn't count. Or it is, and we're going to have an Apollo Creed style person yelling that it's supposed to be an exhibition. A coach going, it's a weird card. There's submission grappling for some of their top names, and there's some fighters. I understand why they're doing the submission grappling, so they don't burn all of their roster to fight again in a month. Because if you're grappling, technically you're able to recover better because you don't get punched in the face. That's the theory. Now, if you get your arm cranked and you can't heel hook in these grappling matches, but something can happen. But this is everything one can do. This is the best they can offer. So people will pay money for it, but I don't think many will. And I say that as somebody who went for Ryzen this weekend, and that card, that wasn't a $25 card. Anyway, Ant, are you gonna one out on us? Should you put the hat on?
I'd like to. This is the only barrier to entry to me is just the time that it's going to be on. I have a hard time. I know, baby. I know, because you like to keep me up because you like wake up and start fussing and everything in the middle of the night. So maybe she'll wake me up and be fussing, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm up. Might as well watch one. I would watch them a lot more often if the times align to North America, but just on paper. Yeah, this is worth my $40 when I see some of the names on the card. Yeah, we may not be. This is not the heyday of Shinya Aoki or Sexyama, but I'm kind of intrigued by that. It just sounds like every time Shinya Aoki is fighting, it's probably going to be a good time, and especially with like their personal thing that they've got going on. I know they like really hate each other or something. The DJ and Rod Tang, yes, please. Although I think it's a silly idea, but I'm a silly person, so sign me up. Stan Fairtex, Angela Lee, yeah, great fight. Wayne Parr, I believe it's his last fight.
I forgot about that one. JWP's hanging it up.
Yeah, his retirement fight.
Edward Foleyang of all people.
Yeah, I mean, Nikki Holston's on this card. Like there's some quality names that and the thing is $40. It's less than 75. So we're conditioned to pay 60 to 75 or 65, whatever the UFC decides to increase the price to. This is under that. So I'm not expecting $75 quality in a UFC pay-per-view with 3 title fights on the top of the card. I can give them $40, be happy with one title and some gimmicks. I'll take it.
I can give updates to the questions that I raised earlier. So thank you, online people, but I got this. On the 25th, so that's going to be actually the 26th, so that's Saturday, or it's the 25th for y'all on the West Coast. 1 a.m. So Saturday morning is when it will begin for me. Duffy 12 a.m. and 10 p.m. for you on that Friday. will begin, and then the part 2 will begin at 5 a.m. my time, so 4 hours later, and then the grand finale, the pay-per-view section, will be 8 a.m. on the East Coast and 5 a.m. on the West Coast on Saturday. So it's a Saturday morning show, which means I ain't watching that live because I'm running the UFC Columbus. But some people might, and I get it, and I understand. This is breakfast with Stamp Fairtex. Not quite breakfast with Fedor, but it's close.
I'll take it. Yeah, if I'm awake, I'll watch it. And that's the time is really the only barrier to entry for me for this card. And this is someone who doesn't have access to that lovely expense account from a major mixed martial arts media source. So Walk On Network, we're small here. We don't have much of a budget here. So yeah, this is my assistant. So not exactly paying top. She gets paid in diapers and kisses and hugs. So that's about it. All right, fellas. Please don't touch the mic, baby girl. Thank you. The UFC, as you said, Curtis Blaydes and Chris Daukaus are main eventing this weekend. Before we go into other fights that might sound interesting, who you got, Jay?
Blaydes doing Blaydes things. Oh man, I swear I'm not doom and glooming, but I don't care about this fight, and I think that's also because Curtis Blaydes and Gano connection, and because Chris Daukaus just got knocked out like we kind of thought he would. This, I don't know anything about Daukaus when he gets pushed hard by somebody who can take him down, like Shamil Durakimov, Alexei Oleinik. Those aren't guys who can do what they used to do and take you down and toss you around. Parker Porter's going to brawl with you. So I don't really have any context in knowing what the division's all-time leader in takedowns can do against Chris Daukaus, who is just big and strong, very strong. But this to me smells like, I don't know, like a round 2 TKO elbows kind of situation where Razor Blaydes lives up to his nickname again, and we go, oh man, that's a great win. Now I guess he has to fight and win 7 more times to even think about it. I don't know, Duffy, do you like this fight more than I do?
No, I don't. I mean, it's a decent fight to make because neither guy is directly in line for a heavyweight title shot. So regardless of who wins, you're not burning a viable contender within the next year. But just in terms of stylistic interest, I've already recorded the preview for this, and what I said was the path to beating Curtis Blaydes has been laid out there. The blueprint's been laid out, but there are about 2 people on the planet who can follow it, because you either have to hit him before he strikes for his first takedown, or you need to fight off his first takedown or get back up, and then you need to hit him with one shot that kills him. I mean, Derek Lewis did it. Francis Ngannou's done it twice, and that's it. Not everybody can follow this plan, because he fought Jairzinho Rozenstruik after getting submarined by Lewis. Blaydes shot right into a flush knee, and you know what? It foiled that takedown, but it didn't change the course of the fight. And I think Daukaus he's actually a very nimble heavyweight for a guy that, he looks kind of soft, even if he's lost like 20 pounds during his UFC tenure. He's a nimble guy. He has good footwork. He's one of the better boxers in the division, but none of it matters, because even if he tags Blaydes and makes him pay for a failed takedown attempt, he's not demonstrated one-shot power. So he might fight off the first takedown attempt. He might frustrate him for a bit, but this is going to end up with Daukaus on his back eating elbows.
Your description, all I can picture is Bald Bull from Punch Out, where you got to time him with that one thing or you can't beat him.
Yep. Yeah. This is I'm with you guys on this. I think this is Curtis Blaydes' fight to lose here. Daukaus just doesn't seem to have the tools necessary to defeat Blaydes. This seems like the perfect opportunity for Blaydes to take him down and elbow his head, a la Overeem. That's kind of what I'm anticipating here.
And even if he does, then what?
Yeah,
he got smoked by Derek Lewis a little while ago, so it's not,
this is sort of busy work for both guys.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like. It puts him in line to fight Volkov. It's not a.
Again, we not, can't say anybody's too excited to see that one play out again. The one thing that I find intriguing about this card, this is the second card, I think, since he was forced to resign as a Philadelphia police officer. So he's training full time. Against Derek Lewis, he didn't really get to show off much time. If this fight goes on longer, I'm curious to see if he looks improved in any way. Has he been able to put in the work that's necessary to at least temporarily stop what Curtis Blaydes can do? I'm just curious what that full camp, like full time Chris Daukaus performance looks like, and we might get to see it here.
And like, if I may add something to that, you make a good point, because this is a 5-round fight, and Blaydes, his victory over Volkov looks pretty dominant, but by the end of that fight, Blaydes was tired.
Yeah.
And it's not because Volkov stopped his takedowns, especially early on. It's just because he made him work for them.
Mm-hmm.
If Blaydes has to chase a guy with better footwork, if Blaydes has to just wrestle a guy who like actually gets underhooks and just makes him work for it instead of just getting scooped and dumped, and if Blaydes is up, say 2-0 going into the third, and he's the more tired looking man, this is all of a sudden a really interesting fight.
Interesting dynamic there, because that really is the question I will always have for Daukaus. I think he's gone the distance once as a pro, and it was low in his career when he wasn't being tested. I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say Curtis Blaydes has like an Andrew Sanchez kind of style, and that he exhausts himself trying to take you down, because Blaydes is going to get you down. He like I had said a few minutes ago, he passed Cain Velasquez a long time ago for the most takedowns at heavyweight, and I don't seem like anything is going to stop that. But I guess I'm curious more. There are like 13 fights in this card now, I think, because David Onama has been pulled from the lineup. What is sexy to you guys? I mean, obviously I know what one of you is going to say, and I'm okay with it, but what do you guys think is really shining out on this card? Obviously Oleinik Latifi, duh.
I mean, that's going to be either the best fight or the worst fight. That's one that there's no middle
we
ground
know
on,
what's going to happen in that fight.
but it's probably going to suck. I'm going to go Neil Magny, Max Griffin, two guys who are action heavy and not always thought about as the most exciting fighters, but when they put it on, they put it on. Griffin never goes out like a chump. Like, that dude always brings it as best as he can. Neil Magny, a pretty diverse fighter in what he's able to do. I like that one. I'm not going to take the obvious answer. Ben, I'll leave that for you, unless you have a non-obvious one you want to share.
I don't see any obvious ones on here, honestly. I mean, I understand why Brown versus Barberena is on the main card, but that is a consequence-free welterweight action fight, and if it goes past the first round, it might not even be much of an action fight. These are two fighters who are shot and well on their way there, respectively. So if Brown doesn't get a gnarly knockout in the first 4 minutes, we might just be in for just another fight between a couple of unranked welterweights. I mean, assuming the bout order stays as it is, Matheus Nicolau versus David Dvorak on the undercard. Those are two really, really promising flyweights, and it's not even like they're prospects. They're guys that on talent might be top 10 flyweights right now, and they're both under 30, and most of their fights are pretty exciting. Like, that's a fight of the night sleeper, and right now it's like third from the bottom.
It is an actual top 10 flyweight fight. I'm not making that up.
Like,
Nicolau's number 8 and Dvorak's number 10.
There you go.
They don't even care about that. It's so weird. Brown versus Barberena is like, I think of it to myself like a cotton candy kind of fight. Like, it's going to be silly, it's going to be fun, it's going to be sweet, but you don't feel, you don't take anything away from it. You're not full at the end of it. I mean, what are we going to know? Say Matt Brown walks him down into Diego Sanchez's him. We go, yay, okay, let's move on to the next one. Or Barberena kind of wiggles around and does that loosey-goosey, I look like I'm knocked out, but I'm not kind of approach. We don't take anything away from it. There's no contenders. So this is that carefree, I'm glad they're both still getting paid. At least they're fighting each other. Like, it's not like we're throwing Barberena against, I don't know, Miguel Beza, to say a name that Matt Brown was fed to recently. You know what I mean? Askarov, Kai Kara-France. I mean, that's such an interesting fight against a guy with Askarov, a guy who, was really close to beating the former champion and being an undefeated, without a blemish on his record kind of guy. And he's coming back after like a year off. And Kai Kara-France, who, fought Cody Garbrandt in the Cody Garbrandt of what do you guys say in your preview show? Something along the lines of he has the best game plan, then he gets hit kind of fighter. Like
he's the fighter that goes from the most technically adept to the sloppiest, just with one clean shot. Is the winner of that fight closer to a title shot than anyone else on the card?
I'd say so. Yeah, they have to be. Like, what else? Who else would be like?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though flyweight is completely devoid of contenders, like I can't imagine Joanne Wood or Alexa Grasso emerging as a title challenger from this.
But
if Grasso wins in dominant fashion, like she might be sneaky close, just because at that point she'd be still undefeated at flyweight, and she's Alexa Grasso. She's someone that the UFC saw enough marketability in that they plucked her from Invicta way too early, when she had some of her growing pains on the bigger stage. But
I could see them Tyler Santosing Manon Fiorot, and Tyler Santos is getting a title shot against Shevchenko, maybe a little too soon. I could see if Fiorot dusts Jennifer Maia, which good luck with that. I don't think who's knocked out Jennifer Maia, Sheila Gaff like 10 years ago. So it's something like that. I think
if it was Sheila Gaff, then it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's an interesting card to end it. And I don't want to sound mean, but the UFC could have called it good after UFC London and said, "This is we're going to end our streak in a high note. We're going to pay all our fighters the next thing and bounce." But
if we get Matt Brown retiring in his hometown off a win,
I'm okay
this whole
with that.
card was worth it.
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah. Otherwise, sloppy seconds in Columbus. That's sort of the theme here. But
UFC Fight Night or UFC on ESPN 33 sloppy seconds. Columbus.
Yeah, I mean,
we're gonna go edit the Fight Finder now. Give me a second.
I think I saw that on Pornhub the other night.
It's like a far cry from like the marquee card that would accompany the Arnold Classic every year.
Oh, I was at a WC event where they did that. That was so awesome.
Yeah, and Strikeforce did it too.
Yeah.
Like it's a far cry from that. But anyway, I think that'll do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. Obviously, my assistant is quite tired of not chewing the microphone or my headphones, and time to go. So remember, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Check out Ben and Jay doing fight night coverage and post-fight coverage, all that good stuff on sherdog.com. And yeah, so stay beautiful, stay positive, stay sexy. Yeah, I know. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.
She's in such a good mood.